So let's see what this package has in store for the next mod on the Jeep. Heavy, came from Amazon. It's apparently a box inside of a box inside of a box. So here's what happened. So I was on the way to work the other day and decided instead of taking the company car that I'd take my Jeep. I had to go pick up my seats and wanted to pick them up in the Jeep. So I got about halfway there, and it was about a 50-mile trip. And I got about halfway there, and as I slowed down to take a right-hand turn, I noticed that my Jeep started pulling awfully bad to the right. Well, as I started going straight, it continued, and that's a common sign of something very obvious. Something very obvious that became even more obvious when a little bit of smoke started coming from my front right tire. I pulled off to the side and took a look, and it was very clear that my caliper had froze. Pretty common on Jeeps that sit around for a little bit, especially Jeeps of this age. Sit around a little bit, the calipers tend to freeze up. So this one froze up and almost left me stranded. I did drive over to the local O'Reilly's, which was probably a quarter of a mile from where I was, and got a new caliper and put it on in the parking lot, which was just a fun time in my work clothes, which is typically a shirt and tie and slacks. In the meantime, I didn't have time to get new brake pads, so I knew I was going to have to replace the brake pads. So also something I knew I'd have to do is replace the other side caliper. You always want to replace those front calipers in pairs, because if one goes bad, the other one is very quickly going to be going bad. I got the other side caliper right here. I've got new brake pads, and while I was at it, I decided to get new rotors. It's always good to replace components together like that. I found this powerstop ceramic, it's not really ceramic coated brakes. It's not really carbon ceramic brakes. It's carbon ceramic infused, I don't know. All I know is that they're supposed to be pretty good brakes for the price. I got these on clearance from Amazon, and they were like 60 bucks for rotors and pads, which was a pretty good deal because all the reviews I've read on these have been really, really good. I'm going to give it a shot. We're going to install those and kind of a how-to on how to change calipers and brakes on the Jeep. I'm at the lake, and we're going to do the brakes today that I talked about just a few seconds ago. I opened up the box to show you all the brakes. So aside from this caliper, here's everything that came in the box. You have the two drilled rotors, you have the pads, those carbon ceramic pads, some brake lubricant. But regardless, we're going to put these on today. Guys, I'm going to do both sides at once. Once you get the car jacked up and on jack stands, you can take the tires off. I usually store the tires under the frame rails. That way, if worst case scenario, if the Jeep were to fall, it would fall onto the tires. Guys, you can see how disgusting these brakes are, how old and corroded they are, how thin the pads are. So it was time. A little bit of scoring on the rotor. That rotor's about had it. So good time to replace. The first thing you're going to need to do is get a 13, and we're going to remove two bolts. This one and this one. And they just come out like normal bolts. You may have to urge them a little bit, but we're going to take those out, and that will more or less release the caliper. We have to pry on it a little bit to get it out, but I'll kind of show you what that looks like. You can see the caliper came off by prying the bottom out, and it came out. There's a little groove in the pads that hold it in. I'm not going to worry about taking those pads out of that caliper, but if I needed to, they simply pop out like that, and then these just clips pull out, and then you can replace the pads. And the rotor may take a little bit of urging as well. You may have to hit it with a mallet. Dead blow hammer works good, but it should just come off. There's nothing holding it on except for corrosion and rust at this point. Ooh, there's a lot of corrosion. This Jeep was from up north, and I'm glad I'm going to be replacing this front axle very soon. Surface as best as you can. Wire brush works good. Some degreaser, some carb cleaner, some brake cleaner, something like that. Because if you have any chunks of corrosion on this, it can cause a real imbalance issue where the head of the rotor mates up to it. Now comes the fun and messy part. I've got to take this brake line loose to replace this caliper. It is not a 13, it's a 14 or a 15. So you just take that loose. You should go ahead and take the cap off your brake fluid up in your reservoir, and make sure that it doesn't all drain out, because you don't want your reservoir to go dry. It just makes it harder to bleed out a little bit later. You want to keep it up as high as possible. If you keep it up as high as possible, less will drain out. Zip tie it up here or something, or wedge it up there till you can get the new one ready to go. There'll be a copper washer on here. The new ones come with a new copper washer that will mate up a lot better. Always try to use new components when you do that. There's also a new banjo bolt. And the one thing that didn't come with a new rotor is this little dust cap for the bleeder valve. So I'm gonna take that off and save that. All right guys, we got a copper washer here. I'm gonna be putting it right there. And we're gonna mate that right there. We're gonna take our new banjo bolt. Guys, if you're stranded on the road somewhere, I get reusing brake fluid or parts, but if you're not, don't reuse old brake fluid. You can see how nasty it is. So now I'm loading the pads in to this caliper. The caliper's already compressed, so they should go in pretty easily. Guys, these pads are side specific. Remember how the bottom slid in and the top was notched? So I just put the wrong side into the caliper, so I'm gonna pop it back out. I'm gonna put the correct side in. And now I've got a loaded caliper. Guys, I did forget the lubricant. This is really almost pointless. You don't have to have it, but you put it on this backing plate right here. At least where I'm at, you don't really need it. I've hardly ever used brake grease. I've never had an issue. I've done brakes on probably, I don't know, probably 100 times minimum between me and my family. But I've never used these very specific power stop brakes, so I'm going to go ahead and do what they say. Never put brake grease on this side. That may sound like common sense. There's a reason they say common sense ain't common, because people have done it. They say, oh, it's brake grease, it goes on the brakes. Well, yeah, I guess. I'm gonna push these little spring-loaded pieces back so I can mount this back on the bracket. Remember, the top goes in first and the bottom just slides in. Got new bolts for this. Some people put red Loctite on there. That's fine. All right, I'm gonna tighten everything up. I'm not gonna show you that. Simply tightening those bolts, making sure that banjo bolt's tight. Now once I get it onto the bracket, and then we'll go around and change the pads on the other side, which will just encompass removing this from the rotor, changing out the rotor, putting new pads in the new caliper that's already mounted on that side, and then they'll be ready to bleed. That's what I'm going to be using. You can see how it goes in the caliper like that, and then you just twist it and it pushes the caliper in. I'm not going to show that on video. Well, I might. Let's see. And that's it. Easy peasy. You can get that tool any parts store. I guess probably Harbor Freight would have it the cheapest. It's so simple. That's one of those Harbor Freight tools that are good because you can't really mess it up. You can do it with a big pair of channel locks. Just remember to go slow and apply even pressure. You don't want it can tilt and get wedged in there, and then you'll ruin the caliper. Also, as you're doing that, you're pushing fluid back out of the piston, and that fluid's got to go somewhere, so it's going to go back up the line and back into the reservoir. So if your reservoir is completely full and you're trying to compress this caliper down, then because maybe you've added fluid or whatever at some point, then you're going to be pushing fluid back out that reservoir, and it's going to fill up and overflow. Guys, we're going to bleed them now. The only thing that I will caution again is as you're putting these bolts back in, be careful not to cross thread them. There is some play there. This is a floating caliper. So guys, here's the thing with bleeding brakes. You should always start from the brake wheel that is furthest from the master cylinder and work your way to the closest. In this case, it would be the rear passenger, rear driver, front passenger, front driver. I'm not going to do that because I haven't touched or broke out the rear drums, and I have not let that go dry. So realistically, the way that brake booster works and the way the different lines come out of it, there should be really no way to have gotten any air bubbles in the rear lines. So I'm going to start over here and bleed this one and that should be good. I've done that a million times and it's worked every single time. All right, Marie, pump the brakes and hold them. Pump them 3 times and hold them to the floor. Tell me when you're ready. All right, do it one more time. There was no air come out of there. You would hear it go psh, or a little fart sound, and it didn't do that. It just came straight out. So we're moving to the other side. While you're doing this, you should make sure that this stays full. All right, do it again. All right, y'all couldn't hear it on video, but there was a little bit of a psh right before the fluid came out. So we're gonna do it again. Do it again. Another little bubble, so keep doing it. Guys, I did that whole job with just these tools. This is a brake caliper compression tool. You don't have to have that. You can use a C-clamp or a very large pair of channel locks, very small adjustable wrench, 1 ratchet with a 13 and a 15, a mallet, or a rubber hammer, and a pry bar. You can also use a big screwdriver, just something to pry on the calipers with. Whole thing, that's all you need. Don't let people convince you that brakes are dangerous or difficult or you're unable to do them yourself. Anyone can do this. Trucks, cars, they're all basically similar. Now there's some rear brakes that you have to use these special tools for to compress the calipers with these little pieces here, because as the spin as it compresses, if you have a very specific type of e-brake, Jeeps don't have that, don't have to worry about it. Most Jeeps don't have that anyway. A lot of Fords have that and some foreign cars have that. But guys, the break-in process is to go out to the street, go out to the road, get up to 40 miles an hour, brake hard down to 10 miles an hour, and do that 5 times in a back to back to back. Then go 35 down to 5, back to back to back 5 times. Then drive it around until it cools off as far as the brakes, and then you're done. Put the wheels on, let's go for a ride. All right guys, there's a problem. I've got to go to the parts store as always. So apparently a 99 TJ, there's 2 different size rotors. So when I ordered these off Amazon for a 99 TJ, they sent me the other size rotor. You can see the difference right here. One, this hat, which the hat's this part of the rotor, is about a 1/8 of an inch taller than this one. You wouldn't think that'd be a big difference, but it makes it grind against the dust shield right here and this bracket right here, and when turning, this right here touches. So if you have a 99 TJ, and I don't know if other your models are the same, but 99s are, always match up the rotor size to make sure you're getting the right ones. I got the wrong ones. If anyone needs a cross-drilled slotted rotor, because I'm gonna have to go to O'Reilly's and just get some regular rotors now, because I can't leave the Jeep on jack stands. If anyone has the style that needs the bigger rotor or the deeper rotor, then let me know. I'll sell these super cheap, and I'm not going to go back and replace them. I'm going to use the carbon ceramics that came with it. I got it for 60 bucks free shipping on Amazon anyway, so I don't really have anything in it. I have the price of the carbon ceramics in it anyway. Let me go get my new rotors, and then we will follow back up. I still have to do the break-in process on the pads. The Jeep's back on all 4 tires, and I did confirm that 99 TJs do have 2 different size rotors. They're the same diameter, they're the same everything, except the depth of this hat right here is about 1/8 of an inch deeper on one set, which is the set I have for the power stops, and that's not what came on my Jeep. So it's not power stops error, and it is not Amazon's error. It is my error for not realizing that there's multiple models on a 99 TJ. Went to Riley's, I got some new rotors. They're not cross-drilled, they are not vented or slotted, and they are just standard composite rotors. Good rotors. But I am keeping the powerstop carbon ceramic infused brake pads. That is how you change out brake pads and rotors on TJ. I know I didn't show everything, but you get the idea. It's not difficult. Let me go do the break-in. I'll come back, I'll park the Jeep, and I will recap in the video. Guys, it is a raining mess out here. I do want to finish up this brake video. So as you can see, the Jeep is back home. It's on all 4 tires. The brakes work great. As you saw in the video, I did have to change out the rotors to some standard composite rotors because of the hat depth, but the brakes work great. The power stop works real good. The break-in process went really good. I didn't, because it had gotten so late in the day, I didn't videotape the break-in process, but realistically I just got it up to 45 down to 10 and then 35 down to 5, just like the instructions said. You could really smell the brakes burning. But I guess that, I don't know what that does, but right after I got done with that and cooled them down, you don't smell them anymore. You can tell there's more braking power than what there was, so I'm pretty happy with them. I do wish that I had realized that 99 TJs have 2 different size rotors. It would have made things a lot easier. But guys, that's the video. Thank you for watching. There'll be a lot more videos coming out soon, so please stay tuned, and let me get the rest of my top on my Jeep because it is wet and rainy. And guys, if you like the video, if it helps out at all, please subscribe, hit the like button, and there will be some videos coming up soon. And have a great day.